The Government recognises the importance of higher education to Ireland's economic future and social development, and also the huge impact a higher education experience has on the lives of individuals. In considering the best way forward, the previous Government established an expert group to examine future funding requirements for the higher education system and to present options for developing a sustainable long-term funding strategy for the sector. This group has completed its work and its report will shortly be considered. As signalled in the programme for government, it is the intention to consult the cross-party Oireachtas Committee as part of the process for formulating a plan for the future of this sector. The Government is also committed to enhancing equity of access to higher education. Participation rates for underrepresented groups have increased steadily in recent years, but there are still some groups that remain very underrepresented. The new National Plan for Equity of Access to Higher Education 2015 to 2019 provides a framework for widening access further and contains ambitious targets for the participation of those from certain socio-economic backgrounds, people with disabilities and mature learners. The implementation of this plan, along with a series of other commitments in relation to promoting access to higher education, have been outlined in the programme for government. This will complement the significant work that is already underway to ensure that our higher education institutions are representative of Irish society.
Thanks,
Deputy, 1 minute.
Is the report referred to the report that was promised by Minister John O'Sullivan on just take accessibility first? And isn't it a fact, Minister, that there are still important areas of our country, your own constituency, my own constituency, where there are postal districts where a third level take-up is still less than 20%. Areas of Midwest Dublin, it's the same situation. So, I mean, what immediate steps are you taking to try and redress that? And just in relation to funding, obviously it's been estimated, I think, that the third level sector is about £1 billion short of the necessary funding. We've seen a lot of lecturers are something like 75% are part-time, are not full-time employees. But in that context, I mean, what's your attitude to the expert group on the future funding of higher education, which I think proposed income contingent student loans on the Australian model, to which I would be very opposed. I believe in exchequer funding in this regard. So, what do you propose to do on that as well?
Minister, 1 minute to reply.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with the Deputy that we do need to increase participation from groups that are not well represented, including in areas of particular disadvantage. And the targets that are set envisage about 1/3 increase in the participation from disadvantaged groups, and they've been set out in different areas across students with disabilities, students, mature students, various socioeconomic groups, and so on. So they are at the heart of the strategy that I mentioned, and that is something that, as part of the programme for government, we will be implementing. The report to which you refer on funding is the report by Peter Castles, and as I said in my reply, that report, with all the options, he outlines, I think, a number of different routes that you could take, and those 3 routes, as I understand that he's proposed, will be brought to the Oireachtas Committee so that the Dáil as a collective can form a view as to how we should proceed.
Final supplementary, Deputy.
And clearly, early intervention is critical on the accessibility side to encourage the deprived families to be able to support children up towards third level. And I was wondering if you were aware again of the programme that's piloted in our own constituency, the Preparing for Life programme of Northside Partnership, which revealed huge developments for children in our constituency when additional interventions happen. Whether that's something you could put on perhaps a national basis in relation to that. Obviously, the impact of your austerity policies, Minister, of the last government and indeed the previous Fianna Fáil government on the third level sector have been, deplorable. And isn't it a fact that if you look at league tables of universities and so on, our third level institutions seem to be tumbling down them? And isn't that a direct result in terms of, Trinity? I think it's something like in the last Times supplement something like 75. My own alma mater, UCD, down to 150 or up to 150. So is that not a direct result of what your government did and the previous government did to our third level sector?
Minister, final reply.
Well, I agree with the Deputy that pilot scheme in Northside is exceptionally, and it is an example of how we should proceed. And amongst the 30 actions that are committed to in higher education access is to build on those sort of approaches to try and build pathways for children who might otherwise find it difficult to get their way to higher education. And it involves mentoring, it involves looking particularly at non-progression, at some of the important transitions in education, looking at recognition of prior learning so that people who maybe got out of education without the qualifications that would normally be required can get back into the train. So I think there are a lot of interesting areas there that I hope we can accelerate, and I certainly am very anxious to see improvements in that area.